pleasure to be here with Aerospike. I know you guys have lots of interesting talks, including the one you just saw by Sabu. And I'm just happy to be here. My understanding is that, we're being piped all over the world to 30 different countries. So it's pretty exciting to be all over the world at once. When I was in space, you go around the world once every 90 minutes. I thought that was fast. But instantaneously being in over 30 countries, that's pretty amazing in itself. And let me tell you that what I'm here to do is to give you a talk about my life experiences, because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from my experiences, and I try to summarize it in a way that it's going to be useful for folks that listen to my story. And it's a story of hard work, perseverance. It's a story of being strategic. It's a story of giving back, and it's a story of never ever giving up. And so this is why I like titling my talk "From Mammograms to Missions in Space," because I'll share with you some of the work I did as a professional before I even became an astronaut. And so I think the best way to do it is to just start from the beginning, because, my story begins way before I was even born. My parents are from Mexico. I'm first generation Mexican American here, born here in Stockton, California. But my parents, my dad, as a 15-year-old, out of economic necessity, found the need to come from his home state of Michoacan, Mexico, and migrate all the way to California, starting in Southern California and working in the only thing he knew, which was agriculture. So he followed the harvest of the crops. He spent a couple months in Southern California, a couple months in Central California, and then about 5 months in Northern California, and then he would go home for 3 months and repeat that cycle, hence the word migrant farm worker. He married my mom. She's from his hometown, and he brought her into this nomadic lifestyle. And of course, with any marriage comes family. And there's 4 of us. You can see 3 of us pictured there. The 4th one is the one who took the picture, my oldest brother. But there's 4 of us right there. And basically, where you were born was dictated by what month you were born in. I already told you we spent 9 months in U.S., 3 months in Mexico, so we had a 9 and 12 chances of being born in the U.S. And I was born in August, which is peak harvest month. So I was born in California. I have a brother who's pictured there. He was born. I'm the one with the hat, by the way. He was born in September. He too was born in California. But I have a brother and sister that was born in Mexico, because they were born during the winter months. So now, what I want you to imagine is the when I start reaching school age, because my father would drag the whole family through this nomadic lifestyle. Now imagine when I first start kindergarten in Southern California. I go to my first ever class there, and it just as I learned where the bathroom's at in kindergarten, and I get to learn my teacher's name. 2 months come and go, and it's time to go to Central California. There, I'm up my second kindergarten teacher. Just as I'm learning the ropes there, I go up to Northern California. So in one school year, there's 3 kindergarten teachers that I had, and then to make matters worse, I also basically had to take 3 months of homework to Mexico and self-study. So as you can see, it wasn't a conducive environment to get a good education. And it wasn't until my second grade teacher at our 3rd stop in Northern California, Miss Young, pictured right there in the bottom, that she convinced my parents that we needed to basically stay in one place so that we can get a good education. And my father and my mother, who only have a 3rd grade education, believed in education. And they told Miss Young that. They said, hey, we're not like other farm workers. We believe in education, and education is the key for our kids' success. And their argument was that we would always be in school or self-studying so that they were tending to our studies. What they didn't understand, Miss Young told them, is you move from school to school. And my dad's response to that was, yeah, we do, but we move on the weekend. So Friday we would finish one school, Monday we would start another school, and we wouldn't miss a day of school. And then when Miss Young said, but you go to Mexico for 3 months, my dad's response was yes, but they take your homework and we make sure they do it. So in my father's eyes, he was meeting his obligation of giving us an education. He didn't realize moving us around affected us. And it wasn't until Miss Young was clearly frustrated, so she waited and thought about 2 or 3 minutes, and then she smiled because she got a great idea. And she was masterful at this because the first thing she does is she elevates my dad in a pedestal, so she caters to his ego, and she tells my father, says, Senor Hernandez, your kids tell me you've been working many years in agriculture, so you're probably considered an expert. And you didn't have to tell that to my dad because immediately he puts up his collar and says, well, I'm not sure I'm an expert, but I can help you with any agricultural problem. I'll try to help you. What can I help you with? And Miss Young just smiled because she knew that he took the bait. And Miss Young proceeded to pose a problem to him. She said, Senor Hernandez, maybe this can help both of us. She says, imagine I give you a fruit tree in a little potted plant. I'm going to give it to you. And my dad said, well, thank you very much. Then Miss Young says, now I want you to find the best ground, soil, dig a hole and plant that tree. And you're going to water it, fertilize it. You take good care of it like the expert that you are. And my dad said, yes, I can do that. That's easy. Then Miss Young says, but in 3 months, I want you to find another plot of land equally as good. And I want you to also dig another hole and transplant that tree to that hole. Again, you're going to take care of it, water it, fertilize it. And my dad, a little puzzled, said, okay, I can do that. And then Miss Young said, in another 3 months, what's more, every 3 months, senor, I want you to dig a new hole and keep transplanting that tree. And then she looks at my dad and says, you who are an expert in agriculture, she tells my dad, or poses the question, what happens to that tree in the long run? And my dad thinks about it and says, well, señorita, he says, the tree's not going to die because you're feeding it and you're fertilizing it. But I will tell you one thing. I said, you're going to stunt the growth of that tree. That tree is not going to grow big. It's going to stay small, weak. And if it's a fruit tree, it's probably not going to bear fruit because it's too weak. Why? Because you're not leaving it in one place. A tree has to stay in one place so the roots grow deep and the tree branches grow big and strong. He even raises his hands, big and strong. And then you can count to 2 seconds and you see my father's facial expression change. He realized that problem Miss Young posed to him was indicative or was similar to what he was doing to his kids. And I gotta give credit to my dad because my dad is very proud man, very machista, yet he looked at Miss Young and told her, is that what you mean, Miss Young? And Miss Young smiled and said, that's what I mean. I think my job is done. And I'll tell you, from then on, we still went to Mexico every year, but it was for 3 weeks, not 3 months, centered around Christmas vacation. And when we came back from Mexico each year, we didn't stop in Southern or Central California. We came straight to Northern California. So now Northern California was the only stop. And we would only go back to Mexico for 3 weeks at a time each year. That's when our education started to get traction. That's when we started to learn English. This is why I always tell people, in spite of the fact that I was born here in the United States, I really didn't learn the English language in a proficient manner until I was about 12 years old, because of all the moving around we did and the fact that we spent 3 months in Mexico and always spoke Spanish at home. But once we started settling in Stockton, that's when I started to learn English. That's when I started learning the material, and it started doing well. Now, a lot of people always ask, okay, it's good. You're in one place, you're getting a good public education, but you're still a farm worker, family, you're living at or near poverty level. How does a kid like you dare to dream to want to become an astronaut? And I'll tell you, that dream was conceived. It was conceived when I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, if you remember the Apollo program, that was when NASA was sending men to the moon. And I remember from Apollo 11 to Apollo 17, I was able to watch the very last mission live on TV as it was occurring. And it was kind of like Charlie Brown there sitting in front. We had an old black and white TV with rabbit ear antennas to improve reception. As a matter of fact, a lot of times I would hold on to the antenna to improve the reception even more, because sometimes it was fuzzy. And there I was watching none other than astronaut Gene Cernan of Apollo 17 walking on the surface of the moon. It was a December in 1972. Remember it very clear. I was up here in Northern California, Stockton, California, and it was a cold December night. And I would see astronaut Gene Cernan walk on the moon on that black and white TV. I would go outside and see the moon and all its glory, almost full, not quite full, but almost full. I would come back, and it was amazing that I can see the moon, and I can see astronaut Gene Cernan walking on the moon, talking to Mission Control Houston. I would listen intensely to the reporter, still remember his name, Walter Cronkite, narrating that moonwalk. And man, as I was sitting there like Charlie Brown is in front of that black and white TV, that's when I said, this is what I want to be. I want to be an astronaut. And so when I decided that I wanted to be an astronaut, the best thing I could have done that evening was to share that dream with my father. We were getting ready to go to bed that night after watching the moonwalk. And my dad was walking in front of me. I was walking behind him. And I told my dad, Dad, he said, what's up, mijo? I know what I want to be when I grow up. He said, what's that? I said, I want to be an astronaut. And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, you want to be what? I said, I want to be an astronaut. And he said, let's go to the kitchen. He said, let's go to the kitchen. And I was scared because only 3 things happened in the kitchen. And 2 already happened. The first one that happens is when we come home from school, my mom always sits us down, makes us tortillas, beans, rice, and we eat. But then we're not allowed to get up until we finish our homework. But that was done. Second thing we do, at the insistence of my mother, we sit down and eat dinner as a family, and that was done. The third thing we do there, which wasn't done, is that was where they did corporal punishment. And so now you can understand why I was concerned when he said, let's go to the kitchen so late at night. But no, he wasn't mad. He sat me down right where I do my homework, and he made me justify why I wanted to be an astronaut. And I basically just repeated everything that I heard the reporter Walter Cronkite say about that mission that evening, that the moon was 250,000 miles away. It was unbelievable. We could send humans to the surface and bring them back safe and sound. that this was the last Apollo mission, that they were going to build another vehicle and to return. And I told my dad, I want to be part of that new vehicle. I want to be an astronaut. And he looked at me, and that's where I think he did two things that were very important. The first thing he did is he validated that dream, because he looked at me and he says, I think you can do it. Man, when your father tells you, you're a 10-year-old, that you can do something, you're scared at first. And when he says you can do it, you pull out your chest and you say, wow, my dad thinks I could be an astronaut. But he didn't stop there. He said, if you really want to do this, mijo, and I remind you, this is a man who only has a 3rd grade education, but he had the wisdom to say this. He says, if you really want to do this, he says, you need to follow these 5 simple steps. And I promise you, as your father, if you follow them to the T, you'll be what you want to be. And I told my dad, what is it? Tell me, what are those 5 steps? He said, very easy, mijo. First thing you got to do, he said, is define your purpose in life. What's your goal in life? And I yelled it out. I told my dad, I want to be an astronaut. I figure I got 1 out of 5 done now, right? Second, he says, okay, recognize how far you are from your goal. I looked down at our kitchen floor. It was half-peeled linoleum floor. We lived in a 2-bedroom, dilapidated rental in the worst part of Stockton, California. And I told my dad, I said, Papi, please don't be offended or mad, but I can't be any further than this. And he kind of laughed and chuckled and said, I'm glad you recognize that, son. Because the third thing you got to do is you got to draw yourself a roadmap from where you know where you're at, and by your smart remarks you do, to where you want to go. Because you have to know the way to your destination, mijo. You got to know the way. Draw yourself a map so you know how to get there. I said, what's the 4th thing, Dad? And he tells me, you're doing it already. You have to prepare yourself according to the challenge you chose. And you picked a big one, son, so you know you're going to need to go to college. And then he says, 5th and final. He says, 5th and final. He points out the kitchen window, and he says, you know that effort you put out every Saturday and Sunday, 7 days a week during the summer, and working with your siblings, your mom and myself, picking fruits and vegetables? You know that effort you put out every day? I said, yes, Papa. He points to my books on the kitchen table. He says, you put that effort here. And when you graduate and you get a job, you put it in your job, son. He says, you mix this up, son, and that's the recipe to succeed. And he, parting words that evening, he said, always, always give more than what people expect out of you. Always give more. I went to sleep so happy that evening because I said, wow, my dad not only thinks I could be an astronaut, but he gave me the recipe to become one. And I'm telling you guys, this recipe works. I still use it today because I still have goals in life. And I still use this recipe because that's what helps me get there. Now, I said 5 ingredients that my dad gave me. You'll notice in the slide that there's a 6th ingredient, which is perseverance, which means never, ever, ever give up on your goals. And I'm here to tell you, I put that one in myself because, NASA rejected me not once, not twice, not 3 or 4 times, but it was 11 rejections. 11 rejections. It wasn't until the 12th time that finally NASA accepted me to be part of the 19th class of astronauts. And so that's why I always like to add that 6th ingredient is perseverance. Now, along the way, I had lots of help. I had lots of inspiration. I tell you, when I was in high school, a senior in high school, I think role models are very important. And I think we as adults, you as adults, are role models to your kids, to your nieces, to your nephews, to schools you go and speak at. You guys are role models. This gentleman here was one of my biggest role models and inspiration. I already knew when I was in high school, a senior in high school, that I wanted to go to college because I wanted to be an astronaut. But throughout the years, those goals tend to go to the back of your mind. And when I was a senior, quite frankly, it was still in my mind, but I was more worried about graduating, what college I'm going to, what I'm going to major in, that I wasn't thinking much of it. But then my last year in high school, I hear this big news that this gentleman, his name's Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, got selected as the first Hispanic American to be an astronaut. This was 1980. And I quickly looked him up and saw that this gentleman came from Costa Rica. He came from humble beginnings, just like me. His skin was brown, just like me. And he spoke English with an accent, just like me. And I said, wow, if he was able to do it, that means I can do it as well. And that's when I promised myself, I'm going to do everything to be like Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz and become an astronaut. So he was the source of my inspiration. And also the source of my inspiration was growing up with my family, was the fact that my parents put that expectation in me that I was going to go to college. It wasn't like, I hope my son goes to college, conversations we had. It was, when you go to college. Those were the conversations I had with my mother. She was the one that always pushed us, made sure our homework was done, and made sure we had goals and objectives in life. So family was very important to me as I grew up in terms of the support system to get through college. Once I graduated college, I started working at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, premier research facility for national defense. And one of the first programs I worked in my early career was developing the X-ray laser. And the X-ray laser was a nuclear pump laser that was going to be deployed up in space as a defense shield in case we had an oncoming missile attack, that these X-ray lasers can destroy those missiles that go exothermic. And the weapon itself, the defense shield, didn't interest me. But I'll tell you what interested me was the fact that we were putting hardware up in space. And I said, wow, if I take this job, it's going to help my case. I want to be an astronaut because I know how to put hardware up in space and make it work. So that was the reason why I signed up for that project. A few years later, the Soviet Union broke apart, and justification for projects like this went away. So the funding went away, and the project went away. And so many people, there was about 200 of us working on this project. Everybody immediately started looking for other jobs. But, when adversity strikes, sometimes it means opportunities present themselves. Innovation, that technology that we developed for this X-ray laser could probably be used for other applications. And I remember my boss and I decided to stay behind to close up the project because we knew that the area where I was working at, which was in X-ray transport theory, 3D Monte Carlo X-ray transport analysis, that we were able to characterize how X-rays interacted with matter, and we were able to model that. And so we had a powerful tool we had developed for the X-ray laser program, which now did not exist. But this tool, it felt like we had an answer and we didn't know what the question was. And it wasn't until about 2 or 3 weeks of research that we finally honed in on the question. And the question was, how can you build a better mammography system for the earlier detection of breast cancer. And so this is how this project was born. We applied for funding, and we got a 4-year, $6 million funding to develop what's known as the first full-field digital mammography system for the earlier detection of breast cancer. Everybody knows that the earlier you detect cancer, the greater the chances of the person's survivability is. And the fact that we created digital images, we're the first ones to create digital images for mammograms, meant that we had clearer images, better signal-to-noise ratio than radiographs, and that meant we had more information content, which meant radiologists were able to detect cancer at earlier stages, which meant this device to date has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. So when people ask me what's my proudest professional moment, it's not being an astronaut. It's developing this important device, because I know we've had a big role in saving many people's lives. Once this project was over, I moved on to another project, and I accepted this. I wanted to work on this because it's medically related, and I worked with University of California, San Francisco radiologists, and so somehow I knew knowing a little bit about medicine would also help my case in becoming an astronaut. So this is why, another reason why I said this is a good project to latch onto and to create. The next one I thought was very important, was working in a Russian-based project. I remember the Soviet Union broke apart. Russia now had excess nuclear weapons, so they asked the U.S. to help them with excess material, disposing of excess material, and the U.S. Gladly obliged. And so they took their scientists from the national labs who know how to handle this type of material, so they can help the Russians, and one of them was me. And a lot of people didn't want to go because it was a 5-year project where you traveled 6-7 times a year to Russia, Siberia of all places, not metropolitan Moscow or St. Petersburg. It was Siberia, middle of nowhere, where their nuclear complexes are, and people didn't want to go because it was tough travel. But man, I raised my hand up, said, "Put me in, coach, put me in." And I'll tell you why a little later. But again, this project I selected because I thought it would go a long way in helping me with NASA and getting selected. Well, 15 years after working at the National Lab, almost 16 to tell you the truth, I get after applying 11 times, I get the news that I got selected as part of the 19th class of astronauts. And man, I was so excited when that happened. This was in 2004, and it was a class that included 3 Japanese nationals. It was an international class, and we started training. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, you made it now," and I said, "Well, no, you got to be careful what you wish for, because you think getting there was the hard work, and that's farthest from the truth. The hard work is about to begin. As a new class, you're not actually an astronaut. You are an astronaut candidate. You have to train for 2 years before you're eligible for a flight assignment. And during those 2 years, you have exams every Friday, written, oral, and then simulations, because they teach you how to fly the space shuttle, how to operate the International Space Station, how to become a jet pilot. All these things you have to pick up, and you have to pick up within a certain amount of time, and you have to master it and demonstrate it. So every Friday there was a test, and it was, so if you guys have been to college and you know finals week, well, imagine 2 years of finals week continuous without a break. That was us, and that's how it was for us. When we trained, we also had exercises training, for example, underwater. We had lunar analog missions, 2-3 weeks at a time underwater, where we simulated being on the surface of the moon, surface of Mars. We had a dry lab environment, and we also did EVAs on the bottom surface of the ocean, where divers weighted us to be 1/6 the gravity of Earth, so when you're on the moon, and then they weighted you for a Mars gravitational field if you were on a Martian mission. So we had all those type of activities that we needed to do and train. We also had cold weather survival training and water survival training. They dump you in the middle of the ocean. You're treading water for hours on end until a helicopter is able to locate you and rescue you. So those type of exercises we did. And why? Because you're flying jets, and if you have to eject out of a malfunctioning jet and land in the water, you need to learn how to survive until help comes. You also do wilderness survival training in case you have to bail out in the middle of nowhere. They leave you for 2 weeks at a time where you have to find your own food and water sources. And so you go in teams of 3, 4, and you execute that 2-week survival mission that you have to do. The only thing you have is a satellite phone in the event of a medical emergency. And I mentioned earlier, you also fly jets, T-38 jets. We have a fleet of 28 that NASA expects you to fly so many hours a quarter and stay proficient in them. And so that's what you do as well. And then you're getting ready to go to space. Once you do all that training, you get your wings, and now you're eligible for a flight assignment. So after 2 years of training, now you're eligible for a flight assignment. They assign you to a mission. Now you have to train 18 months for that mission itself. So it's almost 4 years by the time you're selected to the time you're ready to fly into space. 4 years of training. And when you're ready to do that, you do all that training and you're ready to go into space. You'll see the picture of me there with a big smile because I'm at the 192-foot level of the launch tower, about to get into the space shuttle to blast off into space. The bottom right-hand picture is the whole crew going on the Astrovan to the launch pad. And then the picture there on the left that you're seeing is we did that during a rehearsal, a practice run, my whole family. And like a good Catholic, I have 5 kids of my own. And so we wanted to take this family picture so they can remember what age they were when I went into space. And then you get in the vehicle and you blast off. I love this picture. I just love this picture because that's me inside the Space Shuttle Discovery, August 28, 2009. Remember, I got selected in 2004, so it wasn't until 2009 that I went ahead and flew that first mission of mine going off into space. And I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest experiences that one has. And if you don't mind, what I want to do is I want to be able to show you a video of my mission. It was a 2-week mission where we went to the International Space Station. We spent about 14 days up in space. And our mission was the second to the last mission before we finished construction of the International Space Station. And I'll show you a picture of the International Space Station, but it's as big as a football field. And we brought in 7 tons of equipment. There were 7 of us that came in, and we had 3 objectives. And I'll go over the 3 objectives as we view the video together. So if we can go ahead and start the video, I think we're ready to go.
I think we need people to refresh their screen first.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Yes, please refresh your screen, and then we'll go ahead and start the video. All right. And I'll go ahead and narrate. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Here we are, seconds before launch. The 3 engines light up. We're off the race. They light up before the phone. Let's get rid of them off. You know, it only takes 6.5 days to go from 0 go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour.
You see less than 50? Happy, Jose.
It's arrived at even Disneyland is thinking.
103, Team Ecos.
And once you're out there, you can see me give the thumbs up because I'm a bona fide astronaut. Once you're up there, you're going around the world once every 90 minutes at 17,500 miles an hour. Our mission was an international mission. This is Christer Fuglesang, a Swedish astronaut, opening up the payload bay doors. This is yours truly, put on the portable onboard computers while my colleagues put together exercise equipment that's needed to exercise. Here you see Nicole Stott. She's a colleague, engineer, very good friend of mine, looking through binoculars of what's going to be her home for the next 3 months. That was our first objective, is to do a crew exchange. We leave her behind for 3 months. Someone else is going to take her home. And we bring home Tim Copra, an astronaut who's been up there for 3 months. So objective number 1 is crew exchange. Objective number 2 is we're going to transfer more than 7 tons of equipment that we brought. Most of that equipment is in that cylinder you see in the payload bay door. It's called the multi-purpose.
Okay.
All right.
Looking for free draft.
You never got the station in Houston from Discovery. Capture confirmed. Did we get
All right.
it?
Stop flashing red. All right.
Good job.
There you see us celebrate because we just connected to the International Space Station, physically connected, docked to it is the appropriate term. That allows us to open up the access hatch on our side. The folks on the International Space Station open up the hatch on their side. Remember, there's 7 astronauts on the shuttle, and there's 6 astronauts on the International Space Station. So there's 13 astronauts together representing 5 countries. Really an international effort. And let me tell you, these guys are happy to see us, not because we're good buds, but because they know we have fresh fruit and vegetables. They're tired of the old dehydrated food that they've been eating for months on end. And then I also mentioned the fact that we unload 7 tons of equipment both inside and outside of the
Thermal cover is open. You can egress the airlock. Remember to avoid that MMOD strike. Roger that.
And the way we install equipment on the outside is we conducted a third objective, 3 spacewalks in groups of 2. I was the flight engineer, so I'm in charge of the inside of the shuttle, so I wasn't allowed to go out. But I was their Uber in space because I was one of the 2 principal robotic arm operators and took them from one place to the other. After about 13 of the 14 days up in space connected to the station, we undocked. And this is the view. You're going to see the view of the station as big as a football field. Our last objective is to fly around in a circle, take pictures, make sure there's no damage, let the atmosphere capture us.
In control of the stick at this moment.
And now we come in for a landing.
Now going subsonic, the fleet-leading shuttle announcing its arrival at the landing site with a pair of sonic booms. 3 minutes until touchdown.
And remember, we took off as a rocket.
Kevin Ford.
We converted it to a spaceship.
Very obvious.
Thank you, Jose.
And now we're coming in as an airplane, landing like an airplane. And a glider, you will, but there's no, we don't have any propulsion. So we could only have one chance at landing it. I call it poetic justice because we landed at our second site due to weather in Edwards Air Force Base, Southern California, some 60 miles from where I used to pick strawberries as a kid. And here we go, coming in for a landing. And that's a typical 14-day mission to the International Space Station, which was just an incredible, let me see if I can go to the next one. Oh, there we go. Which was just an incredible experience. And I'll tell you, once I returned back and I learned, I basically looked back and reflected and said, okay, how did I get there? From being a migrant farm kid to actually being able to go up in space wearing this NASA uniform. How did it happen? And so I came up with a simple aside from my father's 5-ingredient recipe with perseverance added in, I came up with a 3-element strategy reaching a goal. And the first thing I think everybody knows is very obvious is when you want to reach a goal, like being a doctor or lawyer, you ask yourself, what are the minimum requirements? You got to go to law school, pass the bar, you're a lawyer. Go to medical school, pass the boards, and you're a doctor. Same thing with an astronaut. You had to go to graduate school, get 3-5 years experience, start applying to NASA. Problem was that more than 15,000 people wanted to do the same thing and met those minimum requirements. So competition was tough. So the next thing I did was I said, okay, I'm doing something, I'm putting my application in and I'm getting rejected. After the 6th rejection, I said, I got to do something different. So what I did is I compared myself to the people I wanted to be like, the astronauts that got selected, and said, what do they have that I'm lacking? And you got to be honest with yourself. And I remember I looked at them. They had the similar education, similar age, similar work experience, but yet they were there and I was over here. I said, I took a deeper dive into their curriculums and found out they all had something in common. They were all pilots. So guess what I did? I became a private pilot. I learned how to fly Cessnas, VFR, IFR, visual flight rules, instrument flight rules. That's what I did. The following year, I did that same exercise. Sure enough, they were all pilots, but so was I. Then I took a deeper dive and I found out they were all scuba diver rated. So guess what I did? I invested in myself. I became basic certified, advanced certified, scuba rescue. And so I wanted to make sure NASA knew that I knew how to scuba dive. So the second one is very important. If you want to be like someone who's successful, find out what makes them tick and find out what attributes they have that you're lacking, and then invest in yourself to be more like them. Whether it's training, whether it's behavior, whether it's working hours, whatever it is, you got to be like them. The third thing is differentiate yourself from the competition. Because, remember that job I took to Russia that no one wanted, tough duty job? I took it because I had read in a newspaper 3 months earlier that U.S. and Russia had signed an agreement to build what was going to be the International Space Station. So I knew we were going to be working with the Russians in the future up in space. So it behooved me, it was to my advantage, get this experience. Not only that, but then work with the my boss and tell him that I needed a Russian language instructor so I can do my job better in Russia. And я понимаю по-русски язык. I learned Russian during those 5 years. That's when NASA came calling. That's when NASA said, this guy looks interesting. And that's what I'm saying is you got to be strategic. You got to be aggressive with with what you want to do, but be strategic at the same time. And so if you follow those 3 elements, that strategy along with the 6-ingredient recipe, I'll give you the same promise my dad gave me, is that I know you'll be able to reach whatever goals you have. But just remember that during the journey, you want to make sure you're enjoying the journey. Because it's not all about getting to your destination. If you're not enjoying your journey, chances are you've picked the wrong goal, the wrong destination. Because 90% of your effort and time is the journey itself. So you got to be enjoying it. And so that's just a reminder of that. And then you also got to be giving back at the same time. You got to be involved, giving back to your community. I myself have a foundation, a STEM foundation, science, technology, engineering, and math, where I try to get kids excited about science and math, engineering. And so I think it's very, very important that we keep giving back to the community. And then, what I'm doing now, I'm come full circle. You see me as a kid in a tractor there. You see me as an adult in tractor, much different circumstances, because now I own a vineyard and now I produce my own wine, TierraLunaCellars.com. And so, coming full circle, just saying that you can take the kid away from the farm, but you can't take the farm away from the kid. And that's certainly my case here in terms of coming full circle in life and still working in agriculture. I've also written some books. You can find those at tierralunaengineering.com and order them. I will autograph them if you order them through that website. It's Reaching for the Stars, Farm Worker to Astronaut, and The Boy Who Touched the Stars. They are also in Spanish, so feel free to order that as well. And then, hot off the press, we're going to do a movie with Amazon based on my story. And so we're very excited. Filming starts in August, so that's a couple months away. And so next year, look for the movie. It's titled A Million Miles Away. So we're pretty excited about that. I talked about my Reaching for the Stars Foundation, astrojh.org, where you can order the books, tierralunaengineering.com. And then our wine is at tierralunacellars.com. You can find me at Twitter. Follow me at Twitter, astro_Jose. And each time I write about space, you'll be getting the information. Anything happening with Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, Sierra Nevada, all these companies that are building spaceships, I write about, and you'll be able to hear about it as well. So having said that, I think I'm pretty much done. I want to thank you guys for giving me the time to address all of you. And please enjoy the rest of your conference. And hopefully one day we'll be able to do this again, but we'll do it in person. So anyway, big abrazos to everybody. Thank you.